Right. Good evening. Oh my God, silence. Wonderful. My name is Sue Mannion. I'm the manager of the Student Hub, and I'd like to welcome you all this evening to our private housing evening. Hope you've enjoyed the exhibition. If you haven't been down yet, it will be open again once the talk has finished. This year we're doing things slightly different. We're going to give you an introduction into renting in the private sector. All will become clear as we go along. But first, we have a few housekeeping points. If the fire alarm goes off, please make your way to the fire exits, which are located, this is my air hostess bit, to the sides and to the top. And the arrangement point, or wherever you meet, is on the Queen's Lawn. There isn't any fire alarms due to go off, but just in case they do. And can you make sure that all of your mobiles are on silent, please, or switch them off? I never know how to put mine on silent, so I'm sure you're a lot more technical than I am. We do have an online survey relating to the event tonight. If you can complete this over the next week or so, the feedback that you give is really important to us. It's from the feedback that we received last year as to why we're doing things a little bit differently this year, but I'll explain it all as we go along. If you complete the survey, you'll all be entered into a prize draw, and you can win some shopping vouchers, which will come in handy when you move into the private sector. So let's move on as to why we're here. Okay. The majority of you probably live in halls at the moment, so moving into the private sector is going to be new, and a new exciting chapter in your student life. We are aware that moving from halls into the private sector can be really daunting, and we're hoping that this evening we're going to allay some of your anxieties and give you some information that will equip you for moving into the private sector. So, what is your private journey, your private housing journey? So these are the steps that you should take. So, finding a flatmate, thinking about your budget and about the types of accommodation that you're going to look at, choosing an area to live in, and then what to do when you move in. So let's look at step one. Well, the first thing you need to do is decide who you want to live with. Do you want to live on your own, or do you want to live in a group? This is probably one of the most important decisions that you will need to make. There are some key things that you need to consider when deciding upon your house or flatmates. So, tidiness. Are you a tidy freak, likes everything in its place, or are you the person that has all the takeaway dishes under their bed and forgets to bring them down? Yes, I can see some faces. But do you want to live with someone like that? Okay. Noise. Are you noisy? Do you slam doors and not close doors? Do you like to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night and your friends constantly up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning? Okay. All these things that you should be considering. What about your budgets? Have you got friends who have got huge budgets, but you have to think about the amount of money that you spend? This can cause some conflicts when you're living in the same house. Also think about the length of stay. Are you someone who is quite happy to stay in a contract for 12 months? Or are you going to want to leave after 6 months? What about if your flatmates want to bring in their boyfriends or girlfriends to stay overnight a couple of nights a week? Will you be happy with that? I know, we know what you're all like. But what you all have to remember is that you can't make that permanent, because otherwise your landlord or your agent could start charging you extra rent. So, you have to think of these things. There's probably just best to move in with your boyfriend or girlfriend to start with, and then you never got to worry about it. Okay. Carl, you're a rowdy lot. Have a look at the video. Can we turn it up?
And making friends. There are, however, a number of ground rules that should be established. In general, it's important to communicate with your housemates before serious problems arise. Everyone in the house needs to ensure that the house functions in a fair and just manner for everyone. The main issues to work out from the beginning will be the payment of rent, food and kitty arrangements, household chores and bills. It is important to be considerate of others. Disagreements can occur over acceptable noise levels and guests staying over. Discussing these issues early on will help. For further advice, get in touch with the contact on screen.
Okay, so you've decided who you'd like to live with. Now it's time to think about your budget. How much are you actually going to need to spend? Well, rent will be your first major cost, with Imperial students in the private sector paying anything from £140 to £210 per week per person, depending on how many there are in the group. You'll also need to budget for other weekly costs, utility bills, for example, water, gas, electricity, mobile and internet costs. We estimate these at approximately £25 to £30 per week per person. Remember that as full-time students, you don't have to pay council tax, so please make sure you come into the Student Hub to get your council tax exemption letter and send this off to the local council before you move in. And don't forget to set aside a budget for food. Shop together if you like the same thing. You might also find it useful to set up a kitty for essential household items, such as washing up liquid and washing powder. Remember to factor in the cost of travelling to and from college. As full-time students, you'll be eligible for a 30% discount from TfL. And finally, socialising. Whether that being evening out or a trip to the cinema, remember to set aside some money for socialising. So depending on how many of you are sharing together, or whether you are renting alone, we estimate that you should each budget for between £300 and £350 per week. Please bear in mind that in deciding to live on your own, all your costs will be significantly higher, and you will be solely responsible for the bills. When you start going to look for private accommodation, you will need to think about the additional costs listed on the slide. If you do decide to rent your accommodation through an agent, you will find yourself paying various fees. These fees are paid before you move into your new house or flat. The first of these is a holding deposit. This is the amount of money that you pay to an agent to hold the property for you and for them not to rent the property to anyone else, whilst your references are being checked. Most agents will charge you a holding deposit, which is usually a week's rent, but can be anything up to a month's rent. If you then go on to rent the property, this money will become part of your security deposit. But please be aware, if you pay a holding deposit and then you change your mind, you will lose the money you have paid. So only pay the holding deposit once you are sure you want to take that property. Once you have agreed to take the property, the agent will then want you to pay the security deposit, which in most cases will be 6 weeks' rent. This is the money that the landlord or agent will hold until the end of your tenancy. You'll then be asked to pay rent in advance, usually 1 calendar month's rent. However, if you don't have a UK-based guarantor, the agent could ask you to pay up to 6 months' rent in advance, sometimes 12 months. And lastly, agent fees, or admin fees as they're otherwise known. These can be anything from £100 to £500. This money is for drawing up the contract, taking up references, and any other administrative processes that are required. You may also have to pay additional charges whilst you're living in the property. Late payment charges, for example, so make sure you pay your rent on time. Charges if you want to replace one of your group midway through the tenancy, and also inventory checkouts, costing normally between £100 and £200, depending on the size of the property. So to recap, you need to be prepared to pay in the region of £1,600 to £2,000 per person before moving in. It's important to note that under new legislation in the UK, the agent must advertise these fees clearly up front before you enter into negotiations. The next step is to decide what type of accommodation you want. This is directly influenced by the number of people you want to live with and your budget. So many of you will want to go out together and look for houses or flats and share these properties. So for example, if there's a group of 4 or more, then the chances are you'll be looking for a house share. This can also be the cheaper way to rent accommodation, as you can spread the cost of the bills between you. Alternatively, you may wish to rent alone, in which case you'd be looking for a studio or a bedsit. However, again, remember that you will be the only one paying the bills in this case, so ensure you factor this into your budget. Other options are to look at living with a resident landlord, so essentially lodging, or return to purpose-built student halls. There are a number of private hall providers in London, and you may have met some already at today's exhibition. When deciding on the different types of accommodation with your flatmates, you have to be realistic, and you may have to compromise. Unless you have a massive budget, you may not find the perfect property. You need to decide what is important for you, and remember that you will not be living in the property forever, so be flexible. If there is a group of you renting, some landlords will allow you to use the living room as a bedroom, which will cut down costs, as there is more of you sharing. Check out our helpful Find the Right Property flowchart to decide which is best for you. Finally, some of you may have enjoyed staying in hall so much that you'd like to return again for the next academic year. You can do this by applying to live in EVELYN Gardens. EVELYN Gardens is our recently refurbished hall in Chelsea, exclusively for continuing undergraduate students who are not in their final year. All of the rooms are single, mostly single standards with shared facilities. However, we have a few ensuite rooms. The contract length at EVELYN Gardens is 51 weeks. We have a 24-hour concierge on site and also residence assistants. Some of you may not yet be ready for the transition to private accommodation, so EVELYN Gardens is a good alternative. Applications will open later this month on the Student Hub website, and you will find further information about EVELYN Gardens in your exhibition packs. But if this doesn't appeal to you and you still want to go and live in the private sector, it's a good idea to know where you want to live. This map shows where most of our students live, and this map is in the area guide we have produced. We have calculated the average rent per week and travel options to South Kensington to help you choose an area which best suits your needs. We'd all like to live locally to the college, but you may have to live further out due to budget. Once again, this is all about having to compromise to find the property that best fits you. Have a think about the travel connections to and from South Kensington, the amenities in the local area, and also check out the area during the day and the evening. In addition to the area guide, we have produced a number of online 60-second videos, some of which show the most popular areas that our Imperial students live in. These videos can be found on the Student Hub website. The one we're about to look at now is for Hammersmith.
Hammersmith is a dynamic area with plenty of shops, restaurants and bars. It's also really close to the River Thames. There's excellent transport links when you travel by tube, bus or bike. And the Hammersmith Apollo is a major London venue, regularly hosting live music and stand-up comedy. Hammersmith is a popular area of London to live, and as a result can be quite expensive. For a room you can expect to pay upwards of £160 a week, and a two-bed house could cost up to £575 a week. Hammersmith can be expensive to live, but you get what you pay for, with a great range of bars, restaurants, cafes, and an exciting nightlife. For more information, help and property listings, see our accommodation website.
As Michael said, there is quite a few, I think there's 7 or 8 of those on the Imperial, on the Student Hub website, so give them a look. So where do you look for accommodation? What's the best place to go and have a look? So there's loads of websites, such as Find a Property, Rightmove, Zoopla. There's general websites and forums specifically for students. Obviously, there's loads of estate agents and private hall providers. But here at Imperial, we are very fortunate. We have our own website. It's called Imperial Home Solutions. Okay, this is just for Imperial students. It is a secure site. All of you have access to it. All you need is your college login, and you'll be able to go onto the site. We have over 400 landlords who are registered on the site, plus over 23 estate agents, 12 private hall providers and other services, so people who do storage, who've got boxes, insurance, so you'll find them all on this site. When I say it's secure, it is a secure site. People from outside Imperial cannot get onto it. We're very conscious that your details and people's data, you know, your names and things, need to be secure. So this is a secure site. Even the landlords and the agents can't get onto the main site. They have to go into their own bit at the back. There's also a bit there that's got a housing guide with helpful tips for you. If you have a look on this site, some of our landlords will let you go and look at properties now and book them for October. Okay? A lot of agents and landlords won't let you do that outside of this site. So when is the best time to look? Well, on the Imperial Home Solutions website, quite a lot of our landlords will start putting their properties on the site within the next couple of weeks, probably by the end of April, beginning of May. We will have the majority of our landlords will have their properties there. Not all of them, but some of them will let you go and have a look before you leave at the end of June, and then you won't have to move in until September, October. If you go to an estate agent now, they will expect you to take the property now. So unless you are really desperate and need to take the property over the summer, we suggest that you wait until probably June, July before you start looking for accommodation. I will give you more information about what we do in May to help you a little bit later on. I'm going to show you another one of our Safety Sean videos. You can find these on the Imperial Home Solutions site, but this one is about looking for accommodation.
There are several considerations to bear in mind when trying to find a suitable place to rent. Before viewing any properties, it is critically important to work out what sort of budget you have available. Don't forget that in addition to the actual rent, you may also be liable for household bills and council tax depending on the type of tenancy. Once you've established your budget, this is likely to determine what sort of accommodation you should look for. Generally speaking, it will be less expensive to rent a room in a private house or to share a house with other tenants than it will be to rent a property on your own. Another key consideration will be to find somewhere that is convenient to your workplace, college, university, or friends and family. Check whether a property is near suitable transport links, and remember that the further away from work or college, the more it will cost you in travel. If you have a car, check there is parking available at the property. Once you've established that a certain property is affordable and in a suitable location, then there are a number of other important considerations. Does the house have adequate security? Door and window locks, for example? What sort of heating and insulation does the house have? Remember, a house with central heating and double glazing will generally be less expensive to heat. Also consider the interior. Does it appear to be free from damp and mould? Check the decor is reasonable. Is it furnished? And if so, what is included and what condition is it in? It's also important to consider whether your own belongings would fit in the accommodation. The landlord or the organisation that the tenancy agreement will be with should ensure that the electrical wiring is safe. Do the light switches and sockets appear to be in good working order? Are there any exposed wires? Is there a working smoke alarm? The landlord should be able to provide gas and electrical safety certificates. Before you go to view a property, try to prepare a list of questions in advance so that you don't forget when you're there. Take a friend or family member along for a second opinion. For further advice, get in touch with the contact on screen.
I'm glad to hear that you're liking these videos. There's 12 of them. Not today, not today. I can assure you not today. But they are very informative. They do give you some tips. Okay, as Safety Sean said, take someone with you when you go to have a look at property. Okay, legal stuff now. In February 2016, the government put through legislation that every estate agent, landlord, private hall provider had to show that the person who was renting their accommodation had the right to rent. What this means that when you go to see an estate agent or anyone who you're going to rent property from, even if it's the little old lady who you're renting a room from, they're going to want proof that you have the right to rent in this country. So that's a copy of your passport or a copy of your visa. If you look on the website up there, go there, it gives you lots and lots of information about the different types of documentation. But a tip that I will give you is never hand over your documents to any third party and let them hold them. So if they want a copy of your passport and your visa, what I suggest you do is that you photocopy them yourself, and that you take the copies along with you. Show them the originals and then hand over the copies. Never hand over your original documents to people you don't know, however honest they may seem. So as Michael said earlier, if you haven't got a UK-based guarantor, the landlord or the agent will ask you to pay 6 months' rent up front. We have had some agents ask for as much as 12 months' rent. If you think about the amount of rent that you're going to pay in this area, that's a lot of money. So Imperial decided to set up a pilot scheme last year, and Imperial will act as your rent guarantor, which should take away that need to pay 6 months' rent up front. So it was so successful last year. We had over 170 students who applied. We will be opening it again from the beginning of May this year. However, we had some agents who were absolutely brilliant and they really looked forward to Imperial acting as the guarantor, but there were a couple of agents who wouldn't accept Imperial, namely Foxtons. So if you get a property from Foxtons, they're not on our list, but if you get a property from Foxtons, remember they will not accept Imperial as your rent guarantor, and you will end up paying 6 months to a year's rent up front. You don't have to apply now. You don't have to apply it until you've actually found your property, okay? But bear it in mind, we do try to turn it around within 3 to 5 days. So when you go to see the property, tell the agent Imperial are going to act as your guarantor, and then come and see us and we will do all the paperwork. And I'll try and do it as quickly as possible. So I'm going to do a bit of a recap. So we've talked to you about flatmates. That's one of the first and most important things that you need to think about. Michael's told you all about the budgets and how much money you're going to need to have, which can be, you know, quite daunting. Think about the areas. Don't forget to look in the area guide. On the back, there is that checklist. So when you go to look at properties, there is a checklist there for you to have a look at as well. I've told you a little bit about the rent guarantees, and we've spoken to you about other costs. But I'm sure you're thinking, well, what about contracts, deposits, inventories? This is where we're doing it different this year. I'm not going to stand here and tell you all about contracts, what your legal obligations are going to be, what the statutory law is that says that you have to abide by within a tenancy agreement, and all the legal information. We are going to come to you. We're going to come to your Hall of Residence in May, every Tuesday, for the whole of May. We're going to come and see you. We're going to come and tell you all about your contractual obligations. We're going to tell you all about your deposits and what you have to do and how you get them back at the end of your tenancy. How important inventories are for when you move into your accommodation, and what the importance is of taking photographs and making sure that you write down any discrepancies in the inventories that you're given. We're going to give you some tips on moving in and out of accommodation, and also what to do when things go wrong. This is when we're coming. So we're coming to Byte Hall, Wilson House, Woodward, which will take in the costume store as well, East Side, South Side, and Zania. If your hall is not up there, do not worry. You can go to the nearest hall. So people who are in Pembridge, make sure you come along. Okay. We're also going to bring some estate agents and hall providers with us. So that will give you a better opportunity to talk to them on a one-to-one basis and get them, you know, to offer you the best deal, okay? So we know that it's right in the middle of you doing your revision and doing your exams. We're doing it in the evening. So what we're doing is we're going to have some pizzas and we're going to have drinks. So it'll be good for you to have an hour off from your revision, come down and listen to the next part of the information that is really, really important for you. Oh, where's my book? Hold on. Okay. So you've heard us speak tonight about the Student Hub, but do you know who the Student Hub are? Wait for it. Oh. I do apologise for the acting. I'm sure a lot of you will realise that that's not the hub. The hub is on level 3, and we've been refurbished, so we don't look quite as old-fashioned as that now. But please, if you've got a question about anything, and I'm sure the majority of you have been to the hub, don't forget to come along. And it's because you came to the hub and because you nominated us that with a WOW Award, that one of our team became Customer Service Experience Professional of the Year. And that is down to you for nominating one of my team. So thank you very much. If you think that my team or any of the teams in the Hall of Residence give you great service and make sure that you are okay and give you a good experience, please go online and nominate them for a WOW Award. We want to be top of the pile next year ahead of City. Come on, we've got to beat City. So it just leaves me to say thank you. We hope you've enjoyed this first introduction and that you do come along to your halls of residence in May. The exhibitors are still downstairs for another half an hour, so please go and get some freebies. And thank you.